Naomi never made it out of that office. Not after what he said. Not after the door slammed shut behind her. 1 minute, she was just a tired analyst trying to survive another brutal night shift. The next, she was being accused of something she didn't do. By the one man who could ruin her life with a sentence. Her phone was still glowing. One message. One mistake. And now security was already moving. Before we go any further, subscribe right now. Because stories like this, they don't end clean. And drop where you're watching from and the time in the comments. Let's see how many of us are here together for this. Back to Naomi. She stood there, frozen, her heart punching her ribs, staring at the man who looked at her like she was disposable. She didn't know yet. This wasn't an argument. This was a setup. And what happened next destroyed everything she thought she knew. Naomi Calder had learned the sound of a building after midnight. It was a living thing once the people were gone. Elevators breathing, air vents whispering, the faint hum of electricity crawling behind the walls like a restless insect. At that hour, the Manhattan Tower didn't feel powerful. It felt hollow, like it had swallowed every voice during the day and was now digesting them in the dark. Her eyes burned from staring at screens too long. Red numbers, blue folders, gray files that never ended. Her wrist was warm where she'd pressed it against her forehead earlier, trying to push the headache back into wherever headaches were born. She should have gone home hours ago. But home meant a voicemail from the hospital she didn't want to listen to yet. Home meant numbers on envelopes she couldn't pay. Home meant silence that felt louder than any office. So she stayed. Naomi adjusted the fraying cuff of her sweater and kept working like the building might reward her for it. Like spreadsheets could save a life. Like numbers might someday apologize. Her phone buzzed. Not with relief. With irritation. Arden had texted 8 times already. A blur of jokes and exasperated emojis and "girl you alive" messages. Naomi stared at the screen like it had personally offended her. She typed without thinking. Long day. He's impossible. If he breathes down my neck one more time, I'll scream. She erased it. Then wrote something worse. I swear he's the most annoying human alive. Like a cute, arrogant guy who thinks the world runs on his watch. She hit send, and the floor dropped. Not into silence. Into sound. Her phone vibrated again. But not from Arden. Not from anyone she'd saved. It was his name. On her screen. She didn't read it at first. She just stood there, stupidly, blinking at the letters like they might rearrange themselves into something else. Like the universe might take pity and rename the man between one heartbeat and the next. But it didn't. Her mouth went dry. Because she hadn't texted her friend. She had sent it to him. The man whose name people whispered like a warning. The man who didn't make suggestions, only decisions. The man whose office lights were still on when everyone else's had died. Naomi lifted her eyes slowly, dragged by dread. The glass walls at the far end of the floor glowed. A shape moved. Then the door clicked. Soft, almost polite. And then, footsteps. Not rushed, not angry. Measured. Like he had all the time in the world to destroy her. Her phone vibrated again. Seen. Her stomach folded in half. Naomi swallowed. Her legs felt like they'd forgotten how to work. The building seemed to lean in, curious now. Listening. She considered 3 options in the span of a breath. Run, apologize, disappear. The third felt most reasonable. But her body didn't move. It betrayed her by staying planted like this moment deserved her full attention. His footsteps stopped behind her. Close enough that she could sense him without turning around. Close enough that she could smell something clean and faintly sharp. Not cologne. Just him. The air shifted. And then his voice reached her. Low, controlled, soft in a way that suggested danger lived under the surface. Would you care to say that again? Naomi turned slowly. Not because she wanted to, because some disaster instincts are stronger than fear. He stood there, not in anger, not in shock, in calm, which was somehow worse. His suit jacket was still flawless, the kind of tailored that didn't wrinkle even if someone tried. His sleeves were rolled once, exposing a sliver of forearm and a watch that did not pretend to be affordable. But it wasn't the money that scared her. It was his eyes, not cruel, just evaluating, like she was a problem, and he already knew the solution. Her voice cracked on contact with air. I sent that by mistake. He didn't blink. Oh? She nodded too fast. I meant to send it to someone else. I didn't mean... I would never. It wasn't about you. A lie. A stupid one. His eyes dropped, not to her face, to her phone still glowing in her hand. He held it out. Not commanding. Expectant. Naomi placed it in his palm like she was giving up a weapon. He read it again slowly, like he might find something new hidden between the words if he took his time. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Every second was a countdown. Then he looked at her, and finally, he smiled. Not warm, not kind, not cruel, just curious. Cute, he repeated quietly. The words settled into the air like a match near gasoline. Naomi braced for impact, for humiliation, for career-ending wrath. But it didn't come. Instead, he did something worse. He laughed. Not loudly. Under his breath. Like the idea amused him more than it offended. She waited for his tone to change. It didn't. You know, he said, sliding her phone on the desk beside her instead of keeping it. Most people don't speak to me honestly. Her throat tightened. Most people don't dare. Naomi didn't answer. She couldn't. Her hands were trembling now. She curled them into fists at her sides, hoping he wouldn't notice. His gaze flicked down. He noticed. He always noticed. He took one step back, gave her space without asking. Then he did something that made her heart misfire. Do you drink? The question felt out of place. Time slipped. She stared at him, certain this was another test she hadn't studied for. Occasionally, she said, confused. A beat passed. The office seemed to lean closer. He reached for his coat. I'm going to a bar 3 blocks from here, he said. You're coming with me. That wasn't a question. Naomi opened her mouth, then closed it, then tried again. Sir. He stopped her without raising his voice. Not in the office. Her heart tripped. What? His eyes held hers. Not there. She felt heat rise under her skin. I don't think that's appropriate. His mouth curved again, and this time, it wasn't cold. It was something else. Then don't come as my employee. Her breath caught. Come as a stranger, he said, then softer. Everyone deserves one night where they don't have to pretend. The building seemed to hold its breath. Naomi looked back at her desk, at the papers she didn't want, the life that didn't ask what she wanted, at the numbers that never slept, but never saved. Then she looked at him, the dangerous stranger who had just cracked a door in her wall. Her phone buzzed. Hospital notification. She didn't read it. She didn't want to know yet. Just one drink, she said. He didn't smile. Not really. But something shifted behind his eyes. Good, he said, and turned toward the elevator without looking back. Naomi grabbed her coat and followed him into a night she would never survive the same way again. The elevator ride was too quiet. Not the comfortable kind of quiet that wraps around you like a blanket. The sharp kind. The kind that makes every breath feel like a confession. Naomi stood on the left side of the mirrored walls, watching herself fracture into a dozen anxious reflections, each one more pale than the last. He stood beside her, hands in his coat pockets, gaze fixed on the closing numbers above the door. Neither of them spoke. The building descended slowly, like it was reluctant to release them. Naomi counted the seconds between floors, wondering how her life had spun so wildly off course in such a small amount of time. A message. A single careless sentence. And now she was locked inside a moving metal box with the one man who could end her career with a phone call. But instead of ending it, he'd invited her out. Her phone vibrated again. She ignored it. She couldn't deal with hospitals and heartbreak and humiliation all at once. The night was already dangerously full. The elevator dinged. The doors parted into the empty lobby, marble floors shining under dim security lights. The building was a cathedral to ambition during the day. At night, it felt abandoned, holy in a lonely way. They walked side by side through revolving doors that swept them into the city like an unspoken release. New York after midnight never apologized for existing. Taxis hissed past like impatient animals. Streetlights burned yellow against black sky. Music leaked from somewhere unseen. Laughter echoed between buildings and disappeared just as fast. Naomi tugged her coat tighter around herself, the air brushing cold against skin still warm from fear. He walked ahead now, not rushing, not checking that she was behind him. He didn't need to. Something in her had already surrendered. The bar was small and dark, tucked beneath an old brick building that smelled like rain and secrets. A neon sign buzzed faintly by the door, missing one glowing letter like it had lost part of its identity. Inside, the world exhaled. Low jazz slithered through the room, soft and unhurried. The lighting was amber and forgiving. Bottles lined the walls like silent witnesses. Conversations curled through the space, but never landed anywhere for too long. A bartender nodded at them. 2 stools. Close. Too close. Naomi slid onto hers like it was the only solid thing left in the night. Her shoulders finally dropped, muscles loosening for the first time in weeks. He ordered without looking at a menu. 2 drinks. Something dark. Something quiet. The glasses arrived almost instantly. Naomi stared at hers, then at him, then at the condensation sliding slowly down the side of the glass, as if time itself had grown nervous. She took a sip. It burned. And for the first time in months, she felt awake. He took a slow drink, too. Still hadn't introduced himself. Neither had she. The silence lingered again, but now it felt different, looser, charged. He shifted slightly on the stool. Do you frequently tell people exactly what you think of them? Naomi choked almost imperceptibly. Only when I think they can handle it. His brow lifted. Impressive assumption. She swallowed another sip, courage building poorly and too fast. Well, I assumed you'd already fired me by now. He set his glass down gently. You assumed wrong. The way he said it made her heart misbehave. Why? She asked. The words slipped out before she could stop it. Not why the drink, why the invitation, why the silence instead of punishment. Why her? He didn't answer immediately. The bartender walked past, leaving behind the scent of citrus and alcohol and nostalgia. Finally, he said, Because you looked exhausted. She blinked. That's a strange reward for being rude. He nodded. True. Another pause. Then quieter. People who aren't breaking don't speak like that. The words struck closer than she expected. Naomi turned slightly on her stool, forced laughter crawling into her voice like armor. Well, lucky you. You found one in mid-collapse. He looked at her. Really looked. Not at her suit, not at her job badge. At her hands wrapped too tightly around the glass. At her jaw clenched too hard. At her eyes pretending they weren't tired. Then let this be the first hour you don't have to hold yourself together, he said. Her throat tightened. She laughed again, but softer, more honest this time. He lifted his glass toward hers. To 1 hour, he said. She hesitated, then clinked. To not pretending. They drank, and something unguarded passed between them like static. Naomi exhaled. I don't even know your name. That's on purpose, he said. Her pulse shifted. Yours? She considered lying, considered inventing a woman who didn't owe the universe so much money. But she didn't. Naomi. It sounded different here. Not tired, not weighed. Just a name. He nodded slowly. Then tonight, Naomi, you don't know mine either. She smiled despite herself. That seems dangerous. Most honest things are. Outside, rain had started, soft against windows, like a warning or a blessing. She didn't know which yet. Why are you really here? She asked. At this hour, in this place, instead of wherever men like you disappear to after dark. He turned his glass slightly, watched the ice move. Asking personal questions, Naomi? Her mouth curved faintly. Guess I'm in the mood to. Something dark passed behind his gaze. There. Then gone. Then ask a better one. She hesitated, then asked the only thing that mattered. What's weighing on you? The bar shifted. The silence changed shape. He stared into his drink like it might answer for him. Then he said quietly, My life looks nothing like mine. Naomi felt that in her bones. He continued, I wake up to decisions I didn't make, commitments I didn't ask for, a future I don't recognize. She nodded. I know that one. Their eyes met, a mirror moment, two strangers recognizing the same wound from different angles. Naomi swallowed. My aunt's in the hospital, stage 4. I'm the only one left. Rent's overdue. Credit cards are screaming. And every day I act like none of that touches me. He didn't interrupt, didn't avert, just listened, like the world should. I'm not supposed to be tired, she finished softly. I'm supposed to be grateful. Her voice wavered. Just once. That's what everyone else says when they don't have to live your life, he said. Naomi nodded. Hard. The bartender set down another round without asking. Neither of them touched it. Something deeper had taken over. The city outside kept moving. But inside the bar, time stalled. You know, she said, quieter now. I never break rules. His mouth curved slightly. Noted. She smiled, then shook her head. But tonight, I kind of want to. He studied her, measured. Not with authority, with curiosity. Then break them carefully, he said. Some rules bite back. Their knees brushed again. Not accidental. This time, neither pulled away. Naomi felt her pulse climb. Not into fear, into something reckless, and warm, and wrong in exactly the right way. She lifted her glass. One more, she said. To bad decisions. His gaze locked with hers. Something honest lived there now, something unguarded. To nights we won't survive the same way tomorrow, he replied. They drank, and the world tilted. Just enough. The second drink didn't make Naomi reckless. It made her honest. There was a difference. Recklessness burned hot and fast. It crashed into things. Honesty slipped in quietly and sat beside you like it had always been there. Naomi leaned back against the bar, the chill of the marble seeping through her sweater. The music curled around her spine, slow and dirty and soft in all the places she'd been trying not to feel. He watched her like he wasn't chasing anything, like he was simply present, and that unsettled her more than if he hadn't been. You don't look like someone who enjoys giving up control, he said. She let out a small laugh. I don't. I schedule breakdowns and postpone emotions. Efficient. Exhausting. Their eyes met again. Held. You could measure nights like this in seconds. You could also lose years in them. She studied his hands wrapped around the glass. Clean, steady. A faint scar across one knuckle that suggested he wasn't always as untouchable as he looked. Let me guess, she said. You're one of those men who looks like he owns the room even when he's just renting time. He smiled faintly. And you're one of those women who carries the world and pretends it's a purse. She scoffed. That obvious? Pain has posture. She glanced away. No one ever noticed that. Not really. Outside, rain thickened against the windows, streaking the city into watercolor. A storm swallowing everything. Naomi took another sip. You ever get tired of pretending you're fine? His jaw tightened, not visibly, but emotionally. She felt it. Every word from him after that was softer. Heavy lies require strong shoulders. She swallowed. A silence settled between them. Not awkward, heavy, like something was about to break, or be restored. He leaned in slightly, not touching, not invading, just closer than before, and the room thinned around them. "I don't know your name," she murmured. His breath brushed her ear when he replied, "You don't need it." Her heart stuttered, so she didn't ask. They talked, not about work, not about futures, about childhood streets, about smells that made them nostalgic for lives they couldn't quite remember, about bad movies that still made them cry, about dreams they never confessed to anyone else because saying them out loud would make losing them real. Naomi found herself laughing without checking if it was allowed. Really laughing. The kind that fills you. That beats against your ribs like it has somewhere better to be. At some point, she stopped paying attention to how close they were, noticed instead how warm it felt to be seen without being measured. "You're dangerous," she told him quietly. He looked surprised. "How so?" "You make it feel easy." "That's what makes people reckless," he said. "And what makes people alive?" she answered. The music changed, slower, thicker, like honey poured through speakers. His knee shifted closer. Her breath followed. Neither of them acknowledged it, because acknowledging it would drag it back into reality, and this night was refusing reality at every turn. The rain outside cursed the glass harder. Naomi stood suddenly. Her legs wobbled. He stood too. Reflex. "I should go," she said, not moving. He didn't pretend not to hear the part of her that wanted him to ask her to stay. But he didn't. Instead, he said something worse. "Then I'd better walk you." They stepped into the rain. The city didn't bother to soften herself for them. Taxis sprayed gutters. Streetlights shattered puddles into gold. Naomi pushed her hair back, laughing as rain kissed her face like it had missed her for years. They walked in silence for a block. Then two. Their shoulders brushed, stayed that way. At the third corner, she stopped. "Don't," she said. He turned, rain streaming from his hair down his face, eyes darker now. "Don't what?" "Try to make this something it isn't." His mouth curved faintly. "Then tell me what it is." Her voice dropped. "Temporary." The word trembled. Not weak, just honest. "As long as it's real," he answered. Something cracked, inside both of them. She stepped closer. Not by much. Enough. The city held its breath. Or maybe that was just them. Their foreheads brushed. Rain pooled on lashes. Noses brushed. Her breath tangled with his. "You're going to ruin my life," she whispered. His reply came against her mouth. "Just for tonight." So she kissed him. Not carefully, not foolishly, not like a fantasy, like a woman who had been drowning and didn't care if the air burned. His hands were warm at her waist. Steady, like he knew exactly where she'd break, and where she wouldn't. The kiss deepened. Rain applauded. Cars screamed past like the world was warning them to stop. They didn't. They pulled apart just enough to breathe. Foreheads still touching. "I don't know who you are," she whispered. "Good," he replied. "Be with who I am, not what I am." That scared her. It also undid her. They didn't go to her place. She couldn't bear to bring him into that weight. He took her somewhere else instead. Somewhere high. A temporary apartment with windows that drank the city whole. Neither of them asked whose it was. Neither of them cared. The door closed, and the world stopped pretending they were good people. Clothes dissolved. Slowly. Without rush. Without shame. The rain outside matched every unguarded sound they made. Some nights are loud. Some nights whisper. This one burned. And when Naomi finally slept, entwined in a stranger whose name she didn't know, she dreamed of peace. For the first time in years. And just before dawn, she woke. The city still asleep. The room still damp with night. He slept peacefully beside her. open, unarmored. Naomi watched his chest rise, fall, rise, and something in her ached with the knowledge she was already leaving. So she dressed quietly. Didn't wake him. Didn't steal anything. Didn't take a number. She didn't trust herself not to stay if she did. At the door, she paused, looking back at the man who had made her forget everything. Except herself. Her fingers brushed something on the nightstand. A watch. Heavy. Elegant. Impossibly expensive. She left it there. Not as a claim. As a promise. Then she walked out. Before daybreak remembered who she was supposed to be. Naomi expected the city to look different in the morning. After a night like that, reality was supposed to crack somewhere. A streetlight should have flickered. A building should have leaned. Something should have hinted that what happened wasn't allowed to exist inside an ordinary Tuesday. But New York just kept breathing. Buses sighed at corners. Coffee lines formed. Horns complained. The world didn't care that her life had tilted off its axis in the dark. She walked into the office with yesterday's face and last night's secrets still warm in her bones. Her phone buzzed again. Hospital. She stopped walking, stared, then locked the screen without opening it. Not yet. Not now. She couldn't let the night collapse under fluorescent lights and unpaid balances. She needed to survive the morning first. The lobby swallowed her whole like it always had. Polished floors, artificial smiles, people who spoke in emails instead of sentences. And just like that, the night began to feel like it had never happened. Until she reached her desk, her chair was gone. Her computer was gone. There was a single white envelope sitting where her life had been yesterday, with her name handwritten across the front, Calder, in ink, no letterhead, no department stamp, no explanation. Her stomach dropped straight into her shoes. She opened it slowly. Inside were 4 words. Take the executive elevator. No signature. No explanation. Her breath stuttered. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't corporate. This was personal. Naomi glanced around. No one was watching. Everyone was working. Or pretending to. She stood there too long. Then she walked. The executive elevator didn't blink when she pressed the button. It accepted her like she belonged. The doors slid shut behind her with a softness that made her nervous. Up, up, up. The air changed as they rose, quieter, thicker, like oxygen charged with power. She imagined the watch on his nightstand, heavy, foreign, a piece of a world she wasn't supposed to touch. The elevator chimed, the doors opened. She stepped out and froze. This floor wasn't hers. It wasn't anyone's. It was glass and silence and art pieces that looked more expensive than her entire existence. No desks, no clutter, just light and space and control. And at the far end, a desk that looked like it belonged to a different civilization. He stood behind it, not in yesterday's coat, not in bar-light charm, in perfection. Suit seamless, hair immaculate, presence honed. The stranger was gone. The man from the night had evaporated. In his place stood something else. Something taller. Something colder. Something untouchable. And the floor dropped out from under her again. He looked at her. Not warmly, not coldly. Professionally. Ms. Calder. Her name sounded different in his mouth, smaller. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. She obeyed without understanding why. Her hands gripped her bag like a child clutching a life raft. Every instinct in her screamed. She waited for recognition, for some flicker, for some crack. He gave her nothing. He didn't smile, didn't soften, didn't acknowledge the version of him who had existed before dawn. He slid a folder across the desk. Black. Thick. Official. I've reviewed your work, he said, voice controlled and unreadable. Your accuracy is exceptional. Her mind scrambled. From what? From where? You've been reassigned effective immediately. He paused, watched her face. You're now working directly under executive oversight. Her chest tightened. The words didn't make sense yet. Then came the sentence that broke gravity. "You're being promoted." Naomi blinked. Once. Twice. What? New office. New clearance level. New compensation structure. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. "There's been a need," he continued calmly, "for someone uncorrupted by internal politics." Her ears rang. Promotions didn't happen like this. Not to people like her. Not without meetings and warnings and months of emotional warfare. "This is a mistake," she said softly. He tilted his head slightly. "No." Naomi swallowed. "Why me?" His gaze didn't waver. "Because you ask questions." Her pulse spiked. "Because you notice patterns." Heat coiled in her stomach. "Because you don't know when to stop working." She thought about her sleepless nights, her debt, her instinct to bleed for paper. "And," he added gently, "because you spoke honestly." Her throat tightened. That wasn't professional. That wasn't safe. That was last night. His silence stretched. And she realized something terrifying. He hadn't forgotten. He hadn't erased it. He'd simply locked it away behind glass and steel. "You begin today," he said. "Top floor, West Wing." He slid a folder toward her again. "This is your access." Her fingers hovered above it like it might explode. "This doesn't feel real," she whispered. He studied her the way you examine a storm from behind reinforced glass. "It will." Then he stood. The movement startled her, not because it was sudden, because it was controlled. He stepped from behind the desk, circled it, stopped in front of her. Close. Not from last night close. Corporate close. And yet, his voice lowered just enough to change temperature. "Nothing we did outside this building exists within it." Her heart tripped. Her eyes searched his. For something. Anything. The man she'd kissed. The man who'd held her like he meant it. Gone. All that stood in front of her now was power, and restraint, and silence. She nodded, wanted to scream. He moved back, professional again. "No one here knows you've been reassigned yet," he said. "They'll find out shortly." The words dropped like a bomb. "You're excused." Naomi stood. Her legs shook. Her mind screamed. Her mouth didn't obey. She walked out. Through the pristine halls. Past art she couldn't name. Through doors she didn't belong behind. And into an office that looked out over the city like it owned it. Her new office. Her new life. Her new cage. She dropped her bag. Stared at the skyline. The watch. The kiss. The silence. The man. The boss. None of it aligned. Nothing explained how her life had flipped inside out before noon. Her phone vibrated. "This time," she answered. The hospital voice broke through the thin walls of glass and ambition. And Naomi's new world started folding in on itself. Naomi barely heard the nurse at first. The office windows swallowed the skyline whole, reflecting the city like it belonged to her now. Manhattan looked unreal from this high, like a living map under glass. Cars reduced to dots, people to speculation. She pressed her palm flat against the window, grounding herself. Then the nurse repeated her name. "Ms. Calder, are you still there?" Naomi stiffened. "Yes," she said, a second too late. "Sorry." The voice on the phone was gentle in that medically efficient way that pretended other people's pain wasn't personal. "We've moved your aunt into recovery. She had a rough night." Naomi's throat tightened. "Is she—" "She's holding," the nurse said. "But the doctor wants consent for the new treatment phase. It's expensive. We need to speak with you as soon as possible." Naomi swallowed. "I'll come." She ended the call and stared at her reflection in the glass. She barely recognized herself. The woman looking back had the best view in the building. She also had no idea how she'd gotten it. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Credentials appeared like magic. Her email flooded with priority tags. People nodded at her now. People waited for her. The same ones who used to walk past her like she'd been part of the wall. Power changed the air around her, and she hated it. She left late. Again. The hospital lights were too bright. The hallways smelled like antiseptic and hope that cost money. Naomi signed forms she didn't understand, agreed to things she couldn't afford, nodded through explanations that made her feel small. Her aunt slept peacefully, or as peacefully as someone could when machines did half the work. Naomi sat beside her bed and held her hand. "I'm going to fix this," she whispered. "I don't know how yet, but I will." Her aunt didn't answer. She never did anymore. Naomi left the hospital after midnight, her stomach twisted. Not from hunger. Not exactly. She stood outside under flickering lights, breathing through something that felt wrong. She thought of the bar, the rain, his hands. The ache crawled upward into her chest and throat and settled between her ribs like a quiet warning. She made it home. Not the kind of home you post on social media, the kind you pretend is temporary. She kicked off her shoes and sat on the edge of her bed. And then, her stomach rolled hard. Naomi barely reached the sink. Her body emptied itself like it had finally given up being polite. She collapsed against the counter, gasping. This wasn't exhaustion. This wasn't stress. This wasn't bad takeout. Her hands were shaking. Her breathing was wrong. She looked at herself in the mirror, pale, sweat along her brow, eyes too bright. "This isn't happening," she whispered. But something in her already knew. She sat on the closed toilet lid and stared at the floor like it might explain her life. Then she stood, walked into the tiny drugstore downstairs, didn't look at anyone, didn't ask for help, paid cash. The bag felt heavier than it should have. Everything did. Back upstairs, she leaned against the bathroom door and slid down to the floor. She held the test in both hands like it was fragile, like it might break if she dared. Then she followed the instructions, every movement slow, every breath shallow. She waited. The seconds screamed. The city outside laughed. Some couples argued. Some slept. Some loved. The world didn't stop. The test did. 2 lines. Faint, but undeniable. Naomi's breath hitched. Her hand flew to her mouth. "No," she whispered. Then she laughed. Not happy, not hysterical, just disbelieving. "Of course," she said to the empty room. "Of course now." She stood and paced. The test still clenched in her fist. Her heartbeat battered her ears with panic and wonder and terror all at once. His face streaked into her mind. The stranger. The man with tired eyes. The man who held her like she mattered. The man whose name she never asked for. Her knees buckled. She sat again, hard. This wasn't her life plan. This wasn't timing. This wasn't safe. This was reckless. Impossible. Everything she'd trained herself never to be. She pressed her hand flat against her stomach. Nothing had changed. Nothing felt different. And yet, everything had. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She flinched, then froze. The screen lit up. A message. Unknown number. She didn't open it. She stood very still. Waited. It buzzed again. Then again. 3 times. She picked it up. Her hands were trembling now for a new reason. A message preview slid across the screen. "Did you make it home safe?" Naomi stared. Her pulse tripped. She didn't ask how he got her number. She didn't wonder who gave it to him. Her body already knew his voice from text alone. She typed back slowly. "Yes." There was a pause. Then, "Good." That was all. 1 word. Simple. Intimate. Her throat tightened. She stared at the bathroom tiles. At the test on the counter. At the truth standing between 2 lives she didn't understand yet. She typed again. So did I. Then she erased it, and typed instead. "We shouldn't have done that." 3 dots appeared. Vanished. Appeared again. Finally. "I know." Her chest ached. She closed her eyes. Then did the most selfish thing she had done in years. She didn't tell him. She placed the phone face down. She leaned back against the cold tile and whispered into the silence, "I'll handle this." But the universe had already decided she wouldn't. Not alone. Naomi learned about the engagement the same way the rest of the city did. By accident. It wasn't a meeting. It wasn't whispered down a hallway. It wasn't even delivered with kindness. It appeared on a screen while she was reviewing expense figures that no one else seemed to care about. A headline, a photograph, two figures standing too close. She didn't recognize the woman at first. Tall, immaculate, pale hair pinned like a threat, a smile taught to survive cameras. And beside her, him. Not the man from the rain, not the man from the bar, not the stranger whose voice had whispered truths into her neck. This was the polished version, the one built for announcements, the one meant to belong to nobody. The caption burned. Financial titan to marry socialite powerhouse in private ceremony. Naomi stared at the screen like it had personally betrayed her. Her lungs didn't work right. Her office, once too quiet, started ringing with sounds she couldn't track. Phones, laughter, shuffling chairs, heels tapping urgency into marble. The world was moving too fast. She wasn't. Someone knocked. She didn't answer. Another knock, harder. Her door opened anyway. Arden slid inside, half glowing with gossip, half hungry for reaction. "Naomi," she whispered, breathless. "Have you seen—" Naomi didn't look up. Arden froze mid-step. "Oh," she murmured, softer now. "You've seen." Naomi's throat burned. She nodded once, didn't trust her voice. Arden closed the door carefully, like grief could hear. "They say it's strategic," Arden added cautiously. "Families with deep money, that kind of union." Naomi's mouth curved. Not in humor, in surrender. "Of course it is." Arden moved closer, sat on the corner of the desk. "You okay?" Naomi hesitated, then lied. "Fine." Arden didn't believe her. But she didn't push. The firm didn't pause for heartbreak. It never had. Naomi's inbox exploded within the hour. Calendar invites, restructures, executive dinners. And one. Personal note, mandatory attendance, private gala, formal required, no sender, no signature, no choice. The city celebrated their golden couple that night, and Naomi dressed like she wasn't about to walk into her own execution. The event took place somewhere no one needed directions to, a rooftop high enough to make gravity feel optional. Champagne tower, white lights, music that pretended money could soften loneliness. Naomi stood in black that had cost her too much and meant too little. She scanned the room. Didn't see him. Didn't breathe. Then the air changed. Like a temperature shift before thunder. He walked out into the light with her on his arm. The woman from the photo. Celeste Blackwell. Tall. Perfect. Ice in a body. Applause rose. Naomi felt it in her chest like pressure on a bruise. She didn't move, couldn't. She watched him smile at people he didn't know, laugh at things he didn't feel, kiss Celeste's cheek like the world had rehearsed it with him. And she understood something ugly and sudden. He hadn't lied to her. He simply hadn't told her there was a difference, and it hurt worse. Arden leaned in. "Should I get you out of here?" Naomi shook her head. "No." Her voice barely made it past her lips. "I need to see him." She crossed marble and light and everything she wasn't allowed to touch. He spotted her before she reached him. Flinch. Gone. Professional calm returned in half a second. Celeste didn't notice. Yet. Naomi neared with something fragile inside her chest. Something screaming for explanation. For cruelty. For truth. When she reached him, he greeted her as if she were a colleague. Not a night. Not a kiss. Not a body he remembered. "Ms. Calder," he said evenly. Her name cracked. Not outwardly. Inwardly. "That's cold," she whispered. His jaw tightened just enough that only she would see it. Celeste turned, smiled. "Reese, aren't you going to introduce me?" There it was. The name. The voice. Naomi's stomach dropped. The stranger vanished completely. Reese Blackwell stood instead. He placed a hand gently on Celeste's back. A possession. A performance. "This is Naomi Calder," he said. "One of our new analysts. Brilliant work ethic." Celeste's gaze sharpened with professional curiosity. then softened with social mercy. "Oh?" she said lightly. "Well, welcome to the inner maze. Survivors only." Naomi smiled back. A thin thing. "Seems that way." Celeste excused herself graciously to greet someone louder. Reese didn't follow, didn't speak, didn't look at Naomi. "Do you want to talk about this?" Naomi whispered. Not pleading, not accusing, just asking. His voice came low, steel wrapped in silence. "Not here." "When then?" "Not now." Her heart sank. "That's what you said last time too," she replied. He turned to her then. Really turned. And the man from the night flashed in his eyes for half a breath. "Naomi," he murmured, "you don't know what you're standing inside." She exhaled. "You mean my life?" Something in his expression tightened. She didn't press. She didn't collapse. She didn't cry. The universe had taken all of that from her already. Instead, she nodded once, backed away. And when she reached the bar, her body betrayed her. The room tilted. The music warped. The lights doubled. Naomi swayed. Her hand reached for balance. Found nothing. Then, found him. His arm caught her. The world stopped. Celeste's turned eyes narrowed, concern painted carefully across her face. "Is she okay?" Naomi tried to answer. Her lips moved. No sound came. Reese's grip tightened. Then he did something he wasn't supposed to. He pressed his forehead briefly to hers. Just for a second. Just enough. "You're not alone," he whispered. Then she was gone. The night swallowed her, and somewhere between falling and darkness, a deeper truth began to wake. Naomi woke to the color white. Not the gentle kind, the clinical kind that made your chest tighten before your mind caught up. The air smelled like disinfectant and promises nobody could afford. Her eyes fluttered open. Ceiling tiles. Tube light. A slow beeping somewhere to her right like a machine counting seconds she hadn't agreed to give away. Hospital. Her body ached in quiet places. The back of her head throbbed. Her mouth tasted like metal in panic. She tried to move. A sharp discomfort twisted through her stomach and forced her still. A voice cut in immediately. "Don't rush it," a nurse said, stepping into view. "You fainted. Panic response. Dehydration." Naomi's throat moved before words did. "Is my aunt?" "She's stable," the nurse replied gently. "For now." Naomi exhaled for the first time since she'd gone down in that sea of crystal and applause. "Good," she whispered. The nurse adjusted her IV, then hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" Naomi nodded. "Are you under a lot of stress lately?" Naomi laughed softly. It came out wrong. "Isn't everybody?" The nurse smiled kindly, but it didn't hold. "I'm serious. Feigning like that doesn't come out of nowhere." Naomi turned her gaze away, toward the window, toward the city that kept building itself without her permission. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I am." The nurse studied her a moment longer than necessary, then nodded. "Well, you're being discharged, but try to rest tonight, okay? Whatever's chasing you can wait a few hours." Naomi wasn't sure anything in her life waited anymore. She signed the release forms with a trembling hand. By the time she stepped outside, dawn had started peeling the night off New York like a bruise. Rain had washed everything clean, except her. Her phone buzzed. Once, twice. She didn't check. She couldn't yet. She took a cab home and sat in silence as the city unfolded past the glass. The bed swallowed her whole, and sleep finally took what fear couldn't hold on to. She woke late afternoon. The apartment was still. Too still. The kind of quiet that felt like it was leaning in to listen. Her body felt wrong, heavy, tender, like something inside her had rearranged itself without clearance. She remembered the test and closed her eyes. The phone buzzed again. This time she checked. Unknown number. 3 missed calls. A message waiting. She stared at it longer than she should have. Then opened it. "I saw you collapse. Are you safe now?" Her chest tightened. Not because he cared, because he still did. She didn't reply. Instead, she sat up slowly and pressed her hand to her stomach. Still nothing. Still everything. The knock came an hour later. Sharp. Then again. More insistence this time. Naomi hadn't told anyone where she lived. She hadn't posted. She hadn't spoken. Her pulse climbed. She stood quietly and peered through the peephole. And froze. Reese stood outside her door. No suit, no polish, no engagement smile. Just him. Tired. Unprotected. Real. Her breath tangled in her throat. She unlocked the door. Didn't speak. Neither did he. The silence hit different here. In her small apartment, surrounded by secondhand furniture and first-world pressure. He stepped inside slowly, like the space might break under him. She closed the door behind him. Still no words. Just the sound of two people breathing the same air after pretending they hadn't. "I shouldn't be here," he said finally. She nodded. "But you are." He looked around. At her cracked window, her peeling paint, the stack of hospital bills on the corner table. His jaw tightened. "I didn't know," he murmured. She laughed. Short. Empty. "That's usually how it works." I know what you meant." She moved past him into the tiny kitchen, poured herself water with shaking hands, drank, set the glass down too hard. "How did you find me?" His answer came quiet. "I've always known where you lived." Her body went cold. She turned slowly. "What?" He met her eyes, not defensively, not sheepishly, just truthfully. "Since the day you were reassigned." Her stomach dropped. "You looked into me," she whispered. "It was standard procedure," he said. "You were on sensitive accounts." Her nails bit into her palms. "So this," she gestured around, "this wasn't invisible to you?" "No," he admitted softly. "But I didn't come here because of policy." "Then why?" He took a step closer, stopped when her back brushed the counter. "Because I couldn't sleep," he said. "Because every time I closed my eyes, you were still lying on that marble floor, and I didn't know if you were breathing." Her throat burned. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't come here and do that." "Do what?" "Care." The word shattered. He flinched. Not on the outside. Inside. He moved closer anyway. Not touching. Hovering. "Naomi," he said quietly, "this isn't convenience." Her voice shook. "Then what is it?" His answer landed soft and heavy. "Regret." Her heart cracked open. Fresh. Raw. Dangerous. "Good," she said. "Because it suits you." He winced, then nodded once. "I deserve that." "Yes," she said. "You do." Silence settled again. This one wasn't gentle. It was full. Their breathing was louder now, closer. "I didn't use you," he said. She laughed. "Then you accidentally destroyed me instead?" His eyes darkened. "Stop." She didn't. "You could have told me." "I wanted to." "When?" "After the deal closed." Her laugh broke. "That's not honesty. That's scheduling." He swallowed. "Naomi, you don't understand what it costs to leave a future you didn't build yourself." Her reply came sharp. "But you'd let me pay for it." He looked at her like that finally landed. She saw it in his face. Realization. Guilt. Fear. Yes. All three. She crossed her arms. "Why are you here, Reese?" He hesitated, then spoke her name the way he had in the bar. Not like a title, not like a wall, like something tender. "Because I need to know if you're okay." She exhaled. "Why?" "Because if you're not..." Nothing else matters. The words sat heavy, charged, too late, but real. And that's when Naomi felt it again. The tilt, the wrongness, the nausea curling at the edges of her throat. She stepped backward. Her hand shot to her mouth, ran, barely made it to the sink. Her body betrayed her in sharp waves. Reese followed instantly, held her hair back, didn't hesitate, didn't flinch, just stayed. When it passed, Naomi sagged against the counter, her breath uneven, her body exhausted in ways it had never known. Reese whispered her name, concern etched deep in lines he didn't bother hiding. Naomi, that's not stress. She closed her eyes, didn't answer, couldn't. He didn't press. Not yet. He simply wrapped his arm around her as gently as if she might shatter. And for half a second, she let him. Not because it was safe, but because it was honest. She pulled away, quickly. Don't, she said again. Please. He nodded, but his eyes didn't leave her. You're hiding something from me. She didn't argue. She couldn't. Silence wrapped the words they hadn't said yet. Something big stood between them, breathing, waiting. Naomi turned away and whispered into the space between heartbreak and truth. This isn't over. And Reese knew. She was right. Sleep didn't come kindly that night. Naomi lay awake, listening to the city press itself against her windows. Every siren a reminder that nothing stayed buried forever. Reese had left after she asked him to, quietly, with the kind of restraint that only looked noble from the outside. By morning, she was cold with resolve. If the world insisted on pulling her back into it, she would at least see what it was made of. She didn't go into the office like a woman chasing promotion anymore. She went in like someone searching for a weapon. The top floor was quieter than usual. As if even the air didn't like hanging around too long. Naomi moved through it with a calm she didn't entirely trust. ID card unlocking doors that had been forbidden just days ago. Her new workstation glowed to life. She didn't open her email. She didn't touch her calendar. She went straight to the secured server pathways, buried beneath the firm's polished face. The places no one visited unless they were sent, or hunting. The first file she opened looked harmless. Ledger adjustments, tax flows, normal smoke. She dug deeper. Patterns emerged the way bruises did. Slow at first, then undeniable. Charitable accounts that never reached hospitals. Research grants with no research. Foundations created to move money, not cure anything. Her fingers moved faster. Her breath fell out of rhythm. Then she saw it. A quiet spike buried inside the noise. Medical transfers, large ones, too consistent, too hidden, and tied to a network of treatment centers across several states. Her chest tightened when she saw the name of one facility, the one where her aunt lay sleeping under borrowed time. Naomi froze. The room felt suddenly too bright. She clicked into the file with a shaking hand. The funding trail twisted, disappeared, reappeared somewhere else, clean on the surface, rotten underneath. Someone had been siphoning medicine money, not skimming, redirecting it. She leaned closer, eyes scanning timestamps and codes. Then one detail broke through the fog like sudden light. The transactions began 6 months ago. The same week her internal job reassignment went through. The same week she was mysteriously promoted. Her stomach dropped. This is wrong, she whispered to the screen. She searched again. Different ledger, different system. And then her name appeared. Not as a victim, as a variable. Naomi's heart lurched. She clicked. A log bloomed open. Elevator access records, late-night entries, office light usage, her movements, her schedule, her patterns. They were all there. Tracked, observed, studied. She scrolled faster. The words punched the air from her lungs. Asset behavior aligned. Emotional vulnerability confirmed. Subject remains compliant. Phase 1, complete. Naomi pushed back from the desk as if it had burned her. Asset, subject, not employee. Not person. Bait. Her chair scraped loudly across the polished floor, echoing in the empty space like gunfire. Hands shaking, she pulled herself upright. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She accessed another folder. This time it was encrypted, heavily. It took longer. Her screen lagged, then bloomed with information that tasted wrong. Meeting transcripts, audio notes disguised as maintenance logs, conversations she was never supposed to hear. One voice dominated them. Smooth, warm, familiar. Victor Hale. The name lounged on her screen like a predator. Her skin went cold. She opened one file, and suddenly he was speaking around her. Calm, calculated, amused. "She's perfect," Victor said. "Hard-working, alone, carrying too much." She fell into the role without realizing it had been written. Another voice responded. Hesitant, male, uncomfortable. "And Blackwell?" Victor chuckled. "Oh, he's already halfway in. He just doesn't know it yet." Naomi's stomach twisted. Her fingers hovered, then pressed play on the next file. Victor again. But the spark, that was the masterpiece. One fragile woman in the right place at the right night. The message was always coming. We just made sure she sent it to him. Naomi staggered back. The room tilted. The bar, the rain, the moment. Not chance, not fate. Setup. Her breath caught. Victor's voice continued like a lecture. "You don't move a man like Blackwell with money. You move him with emotion." Naomi pressed her hand to her mouth. "And now," Victor said softly, "he's finally distracted." The file ended in silence. No dramatic sting, no apology, just truth. Naomi stared at the screen until the letters blurred into useless shapes. Everything she thought she found had been placed. Everything she thought she chose had been allowed. Her promotion wasn't recognition. It was positioning. She wasn't rising. She'd been placed on a board. And Reese. Her chest tightened painfully. He wasn't just trapped in a deal. He had been maneuvered toward her, fed moments, fed proximity, fed temptation. Not because Victor wanted them together, but because he wanted them weak. Connected people were easier to control, and love was leverage. Naomi's phone buzzed. Once, then again. She didn't check. She already knew who it was. Her chest ached, not from heartbreak now, but rage. A clean, cold, unstoppable rage. She sat down slowly, centered herself, and began exporting files. Not randomly, not emotionally, precisely. Because if Victor Hale thought she was going to disappear quietly like a misplaced expense report, he had chosen the wrong woman. By lunchtime, she had enough proof to ruin someone. The question wasn't if, it was how loud she wanted the fall to be. The elevator chimed. Someone stepped onto her floor. Naomi didn't look up. She already knew. Reese stood in her doorway, watching her, waiting. She finally lifted her eyes, and for the first time since they met, she wasn't afraid of him. "Do you know what he did to us?" she asked quietly. Reese stepped inside, closed the door behind him. "I'm starting to," he said. Naomi turned her screen toward him, let the truth glow between them, and whispered, "It was never random." Reese stared at the evidence, at the shadows behind his name, at the invisible hands that had guided his life. His face hardened. Then, something darker flickered beneath it. Not fear, recognition. "You don't set a trap like this without expecting retaliation," he murmured. Naomi smiled without humor. "Then lucky for him." She stood. "I'm very good at ripping systems apart." Reese looked at her like he finally saw her. Not as guilt, not as a mistake, as a storm. And Victor Hale had just stepped into it. The boardroom smelled like money and restraint. Polished walnut table, floor-to-ceiling windows. The city hung outside like a crown no one deserved.